Hello and welcome back to Sheaff Math. In today's lesson, we're going to be translating math language, and we're going to be writing variable expressions. So, the first thing to translating math is to understand what math words mean, math language. And so there's all sorts of words that we have in math that have different meanings. Okay, minus is equal to, product, sum, and it's up to you to know what those words mean. But sometimes we actually have to take those words and interpret them or translate them to numbers or signs or operations. So here's a quick review of some words that we know, some popular ones. Minus, subtract, less than, and difference. And those are associated with the minus sign. Then we have plus, add, more than, sum, and that's associated with the plus. Now going back to the minus, the difference is the word we use for the answer to a subtraction problem, and sum on the plus side is the answer to a plus problem or an addition problem. What about these four words? Times, multiply, product, twice. We associate those with a multiplying dot. Now, before this, we used an X to represent multiply, but because we use variables now, we're not going to use the X. And so we now have a dot as our multiplication. But we're even advancing more now, and a multiplication most often is associated with a parentheses. Okay, and so that's how we're going to be doing most of our algebraic expressions, is with parentheses if we're multiplying. Now, what about divide by, quotient, split into, division? And so these are the ones that are associated with the division sign. But the division sign, we don't use this anymore in algebra. Well, we don't use it in that way. I don't know if you know this, but the division sign is simply a fraction with two dots on the top and bottom. It's kind of a symbol of a fraction, and that's exactly what a division is. It's a fraction. The numerator, the top number, divided by the bottom, the denominator. Now, I just put m and g in there just to give you an example of one. It has nothing to do with anything. But our divisions are now going to be done by only fractions. All right, and then finally, these words often have to do with the equal sign. But we're going to be dealing with expressions today, no equals involved. So, can you translate a statement? 9 multiplied by x. Now, in algebra, we now take 9 and multiply it by x. We can actually put them side by side like that. 9x indicates that we're multiplying it. It's a little shortcut that we use. How about m divided by 5? Now remember, we're using fractions now. So m is going to be on the top, and 5 will be at the bottom. M divided by 5. R plus 14. Well, that's an easy one, right? R plus 14. That's how we write it. 10 less than C. Now, this one I want you to pay close attention to, because less than does have to do with subtracting. But when you read this, 10 less than C, that means that 10 is being subtracted from C. And so it's going to be coming after the C like this, C minus 10. So that is literally what 10 less than C means. Well, it also has to do with more than. So P more than 20. That means that 20 is going to be adding a P to it. So we have 20 plus P, or P more than 20. All right, now we get into a little bit more complicated stuff. And so it says add 4 and G, and then divide it by 7. So since we have a division, we're going to be using a fraction. And we're going to be dividing the addition there, 4 plus G, by 7. So this is how we write it in fraction form. We add 4 and G, and then we're going to be dividing it by 7. 8 less than the product of 3 and 6. So going back to that less than, remember that less than means that we're going to have minus 8 at the end. 8 less than. And what do we have 8 less than? Well, the product of 3 and x. And product is the multiplication answer. And so 3 and x are going to multiply. And then we're going to have 8 less than that. So minus 8, giving us this answer. All right, now we have a new word in here. So we have add f and 9, which is together. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to put that right here, 5 plus 9, and then we're going to double it. Double it means multiply by 2. So how do we write multiplying this whole thing by 2? Well, we're going to actually make f plus 9 a quantity inside a parentheses, because 2 has to multiply by both of them. And that is how we write that one. Now this one is very complicated because you haven't seen a few things, and so I'm going to be explaining some things. So we have 3 times the quantity of a number and 12. Now we just talked about quantity being a parentheses, and so we are going to have a parentheses that 3 is going to be multiplying outside of. But what's inside that parentheses? It says of a number and 12. Now that confuses a lot of students. What does a number mean? Well, if you don't know the number and you just say, oh, it's some number, then we're usually talking about a variable. And so we're talking about x plus 12. And so that's the quantity, x plus 12. So we're talking about a variable. You could use any letter in there for the variable. Sometimes the question will tell you to write it in, n or p or some other letter. But we'll just use x for right now. And then we're going to multiply that by 3, and so we put that out front of the quantity. And there you have it, translating math language, and we worked on variable expressions. So I hope that that helped with understanding a little bit. We went pretty quick and covered a lot of stuff, so if you need to go back and look at it again, I wouldn't blame you. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.